Hey friends, I'm Ari and this is Ari's Book World. I read 15 books in the month of May and today we're going to chat about them. So as always, I like to start with my book club books. I'm in two book clubs and we always kind of like read various different genres, which has been so much fun for me because I really am a creature of habit. I like to stay in my lane, read what I love, and I don't branch out that often, but because of book club, I've been able to do that a lot more. So for my first book club, we read Pachinko. This was such a unique story for me in the sense that I have been seeing people talk about it all over. I know it's very well known, it's very well loved. I've seen a lot of people talk about how it's their favorite book ever, favorite book of the year. So I've always been curious about this book, but historical fiction isn't a genre I gravitate towards, which is ironic because I did minor in history in college, but we're not going to talk about that. It's just not something I read a lot of. I love like romance and fantasy and magical realism or like a locked room thriller. So historical fiction, I'm always just like, huh, I found this so fascinating. It's not my favorite book the way it is other people's, but I still believe I gave it a 4.5 star because of the storytelling. I felt like the author did such a fantastic job of just kind of like sitting you down and being like, here is this woman's history. Here's how she came to be. Here's her family life, everything that happened to her the entire time she was alive, and the legacy she left behind. The ups, the downs, the chaos, living through World War II, living through Japan's invasion and occupation of Korea, kind of moving to Japan. What's it like being a Korean woman in Japan, having to kind of overcome those hurdles, but also raising Korean children in Japan and everything that comes from that. So I just found it to be such a well told story and so interesting. I really enjoyed learning about World War II from the Korean perspective. I enjoyed hearing kind of how it felt on that side of the world because as an American, we learn about it from the American perspective. So it was just very fascinating to me. And then I just really liked what I read. My qualms, if you will, is there's arguably too many characters. And because of that, I felt like not enough time was spent on some of the storylines. I think some could have been omitted for others to be more fleshed out or have like more closure on. But other than that, I really, really, really enjoyed this. The second book I read for my other book club was The Correspondent. This was my favorite book of May. I absolutely loved this book. This book spoke to something in my soul that I wasn't expecting. It's told entirely through different forms of correspondence, letters, emails, basically that, postcards, little notes. It was beautiful in the sense that it just felt so real. I felt very seen by it. I pictured both of my grandmothers at different points as the main character. And I think because of that, it just like really spoke to my heart in a way that I wasn't prepared for. And then also, I did this on audio, and every correspondence, if you will, was narrated by a different person. So you knew who the letter was coming from or who the letter was going to just by the narrator alone. So you didn't have to get to the end to figure out who wrote it. You didn't have to kind of guess who it was from, which is always like one of the mysteries of letter writings in books. So I really just loved that part of it. I loved the audio experience. I loved everything about this book. 5 stars, no notes. Please go read it. It's fantastic. And then I have been doing a monthly challenge on my Instagram channel where at the beginning of the month, I just kind of pull a prompt that helps me read books from my TBR. It just helps me choose a little bit better. And my May prompt was to catch up on or finish at least 2 series. And I did both. I finished 2 duologies and I read the most recent releases in 2 series that I've been reading. So the first duology I finished was the Scorched Throne duology. Book 1 is the Jasad Heir. Book 2 is the Jasad Crown. This was also my first book I read in the month of May. I love this. 5 stars, no notes. This is my favorite fantasy duology of all time right now. I just think the world building is so immersive and so compelling. I think the characters are so beautifully developed. They're so well fleshed out and flawed and show such perseverance and dedication into who they want to become in this world with everything that's happening around them that they're just so compelling to read about. So absolutely love the characters. And then the plot plot and the magic system itself is just so good, so unique. I haven't read anything like it in a world where, I've said this before, so many of our romantasy books are starting to feel the same. So whenever I find one that just feels so new, so refreshing, maybe has a little bit of different lore background, I just get really excited about it. And this one I'm so excited about. So fantastic. Please read it if you haven't. Highly, highly, highly recommend. The second duology I finished was the Saga of the Unfated. The first book is A Fate Inked in Blood. Book 2 is A Curse Carved in Bone. Really enjoyed this. I read A Fate Inked in Blood in October of 2024, so it's been 18 months, maybe longer. So I did have to go on Reddit and find a summary of book 1 because I just remembered the very ending. And then the first probably like 30 pages were me remembering the summary, piecing together the first book, remembering the characters. But after that, I had such a good time. I really enjoy Norse mythology. I really like when it's written into a fantasy. I really enjoyed the characters. Freya is she's just had men try to control her entire life. And this book was really her finally like getting out from under another man's thumb and like becoming who she's supposed to be. And I really enjoyed that journey for her. I really liked the twists. There was a plot point about 50% of the way through that changed the entire ending for me, and I loved it. I didn't see it coming at all. I think Bjorn is such a fun male main character. His love for Freya is so compelling and beautiful, and I really appreciated it because he just wants to see her flourish on her own and again not be another man controlling her, and I love that. So highly recommend it if you're really into Norse mythology. I think it is worth rereading book 1 if you read it 2 years ago like I did, because that was a little difficult for me at points. If not, binge them back to back. They're fast reads, they're fun reads, they're exciting, entertaining, engaging. They pull you and suck you in, and I had a great time. Now, like I said, I did catch up on 2 series. So I read book 8 in Dungeon Crawler Caro. I think I've had a Dungeon Crawler Caro book in every wrap up this year. I've been loving this series. This book came out in May and I listened to the audiobook in May and it was fantastic. Maybe it's not my favorite. I think that is still Eye of the Bedlam Bride. I get so confused sometimes. I'm gonna like insert which one's my favorite. Like right here, this one is my favorite. But this is a very close second. I really loved the character development. I've been saying that each time. I think they just do better and better each book with just how the characters written, how they're developing, how their frustration is grown in the dungeon, how they're just so beat down but still refuse to give up. I think that's so beautiful. I think they're also getting more unhinged. There's a scene in here that is the funniest scene I have ever read in a book, ever listened to on an audiobook, and it was such a joy in such a like sad book. So really enjoyed this. I'm having so much fun. I know not everyone loves the audiobooks, but I really think audio is the best format for this, just to like fully immerse yourself. And my biggest kind of recommendation for someone who hasn't started this series is don't get bogged down trying to understand everything. I've never played an RPG. Those aren't my games. So sometimes I get a little confused by like the leveling up or like the stats. And as I've gotten further, I realized that if you need to know it, they'll double down and tell you. The rest is fun. So don't get super bogged down being like, I don't understand every single thing that's happening, especially in book 3, the Iron Tangle, don't worry about it. So just have a good time. Let it be a fun ride. And yeah, it's great. 10 out of 10. And then the last series I caught up on, if you will, was Soul of Shadow by Emma Noyse. Book 2 is Heart of Mischief. These, I think I talked about it in my January wrap-up when I read the first book. They're just like a CW teen drama. It takes place in a small town, I believe in Michigan, where all of a sudden like Norse mythology is like coming to life. Things are happening. Asgard's on Earth. This like new boy comes to town in book 1 and kind of like upends their life. Book 2 picks up like 3 weeks, I think, after book 1 finishes. It's dramatic, it's chaotic, it's entertaining, it's fast-paced. This entire book takes place over just 1 week of time. And I have a good time. It's like binging The Vampire Diaries or binging Teen Wolf. Like, it's that feeling. So there's like heavy nostalgia to it. After I read book 1, I was like, I don't know that I need to keep reading about teenagers. But after reading book 2, I'm just like, I'm having so much fun. So we'll continue the series. We'll read book 3 when it comes out. And I do recommend, if you like the like 2000 CW's supernatural shows like Vampire Diaries and Teen Wolf. The rest of the books I read this month were for me, not for my challenge, not for my book club, and we had some bangers. So we're gonna go through them. But first, all right, so I did start a new series, even though my challenge was trying to catch up on some, and that is the David trilogy. I read City of Brass at the beginning of the month. Damn good time. I'm very excited to keep going in this series. I'm taking my time with it. I'll probably read book 2 in June or July, book 3 in August or September, but I'm really enjoying it. It's about a girl who has healing magic and kind of hides behind being a fortune teller in the streets of Cairo and doing one of her sort of like ruses, if you will. She accidentally summons a djinn who is like, hey, you actually belong in this city of brass with your people and my people, so we're gonna go travel there. And so she goes to the city of brass and is kind of overcome by like politics. Everyone's trying to use her for their own different agendas, even maybe the djinn, but maybe there's a romance there. We don't know. And so it's just so much fun. And then at the same time, there is a second point of view storyline about the son of the king who was raised very religious, has his own beliefs, and is kind of struggling to come to terms with what he believes and then what he actually sees and what is happening around him, and then what the role of being advisor to the next king will be for him because his brother is heir to the throne. And so it's just so interesting seeing like these political maneuverings of the two POVs, how their stories converge and then diverge, and I'm just really excited to see where the series goes. The romance is so backstory. This is a fantasy with romance, not a romantic fantasy in my opinion, but the romance part of it, obviously I'm rooting for. I will find a romance in every book and that will be what I root for. I don't know if we have a love triangle. I don't know if who I think she's like who, like I don't know if the first love interest is the end game. I don't know if there's a love triangle, but I know who I'm rooting for. I won't tell you because that feels like a spoiler, but I think I'll be devastated if she doesn't end up with who I want her to end up with. And that's all I'll say about it. Every part of this book is so compelling and I loved it. The next book I did on audio, and before I show it, I will say sometimes there are books that are better on audio and better on iBook, and that kind of like sways your experience. I loved the audio experience. I think it was very compelling. I think it was really well done. I do think it's very much like a story within a story kind of book, and I think because of that it may have been easier or better if I immersive read or did the physical book. And what we're talking about is Starless. So if you've read this, you'll understand why I said that. But this book is literally that. It's stories within stories. So there are parts of this that are excerpts from books in the story that were narrated by one person, and then a couple different POVs, and just following along everything at the beginning was very confusing. So you're like, how do these tie together? What is happening? What is the plot of this book? As you move on later, everything starts to come together, and very much like the Night Circus, I wouldn't say there's a whole plot. I would say more you're following a character through this journey and you're enjoying the whimsy. You're just enjoying and embracing, not fully understanding, having a good time, enjoying how like a little bit weird it is, but also how romantic it is, how beautifully written it is. So I did ultimately really enjoy it. I think this would have been 5 stars for me if I eyeball read it. Audiobook 4.5, still really loved. There were parts of this, especially like the story parts where they're like the excerpts from the books, that in my mind's eye, it was a Studio Ghibli film. Like the Owl King storyline, I was just picturing parts of like Howl's Moving Castle or Kiki's Delivery Service. There were parts that were very Spirited Away coded, so I loved that. It makes me want to rewatch all of them. And then the romance in this, again, I'm always gonna find the romance and root for it. It's subtle, it's perfect. It's so perfect. I rooted for them so hard. So really enjoyed this. I shouldn't have put it off as long as I did. The Night Circus is one of my all-time favorite books, so I was just really nervous this wasn't going to live up to that. I think it did. I am very happy I finally read this. I will probably reread this in the future, and I think during my reread I'll eyeball it, and I think that will like close any gaps I have. But big fan, highly recommend. Last year, I had a massive Ali Hazelwood awakening. I never read any of her books, and now I've read the majority of them. I read so many of them last year, I think like 8. And so I read Two Can Play. I ended up doing the physical. I know it like came out as an audiobook first, and then she released the paperback. This is so cute. It's so like simple and happy and sweet. Definitely like a little bit of like miscommunication, but I didn't mind how it was done. Very like rivals to lovers. Their rivalry is rooted in a miscommunication, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the romance. I enjoyed the sweet nature. I will say, like, because it's a novella, it's kind of like 0 to 100, right? Like once that moment happens, we're like, oh, there's spice, so let's go. And so if this was a full-length book and that's what happened, I would have complained about it, but since it's a novella, I'm not mad. I had a damn good time. Highly recommend if you're an Ali Hazelwood fan. I loved it. This one for sure will reread anytime I need like a spicy little moment. All right, and then there was one weekend, it was last weekend, Memorial Day weekend, where I was so tired. I was really burnt out. It was rainy here in Virginia. It was really doom and gloom. I was exhausted from the month and just like life recently. And so I picked up How to Solve Your Own Murder and then read the entire Castle Null Files in 2 days. Book 1 Saturday, book 2 Saturday, book 3 Sunday. Obviously, I loved it. I think these are such good cozy mysteries. I think they're my favorite cozy mysteries because they're not too cozy. They are like cozy in the sense that it's like the small town vibes, the fun characters, but there's still like an essence of a little bit of high stakes in it. The ending is always a little bit of a rush. You're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? There's a little bit of like stress and blood and gore to them, but they're just so wholesome. They're so well done. Each of them is in dual timelines, where the timeline in the past is told through journal entries of the main character's great aunt who passed away in book 1, and in those you're kind of solving a mystery, and then in present day you're solving a mystery, and those two mysteries kind of like intersect and help like solve the previous one. Like they're related but not related, and I just think it's so well done how they're told. It's really compelling, and I don't know which POV I ever like more. Like I'm excited about both of them when I read them, and I don't think that's always the case with dual timelines. And then throughout these books, we're getting a little bit of a love story develop that kind of like came to the head at book 3. So I have to read book 4 when it comes out because I need to know. So really enjoying this. I hope these series never end. I also hope they're a TV show. This was one of the few times where like reading a book, I'm like, this needs to be a show. I could picture it so perfectly. And I think that comes from like my love of like mystery shows. Like I love Bones. I love Castle, NCIS, all of those like solving cases shows, but specifically like a cop and a consultant, and that's kind of the vibe we're giving. And so I just needed to be a series. I would eat it up. I love the series. I can't wait for book 2. Highly recommend. Couldn't recommend it more. And my next read I did with a buddy read with 2 friends on Instagram, and it's probably all over your For You page, right? Everyone's talking about this. This book really like came out with a bang. All I can say, because I really, truly, firmly believe you need to go into this blind. I think that's what makes it so compelling and so polarizing and so interesting. And the ending, like, you have to have no context for this book because you don't want it spoiled for you. So with all that being said, I'll be vague about my opinions because I don't want it to spoil for you either. I have a hard time with books when I don't really like a main character, and so this wasn't my favorite. However, I do think it's very compelling. I never really wanted to put it down. I was engaged and interested the entire time, and I think everyone should still read it. I think if you like a book that kind of twists your brain a little bit, that makes you think about things, that kind of like pushes against maybe your own beliefs, or just like makes you read about a character you don't like, you're gonna like this. So worth it. Not my favorite, but I didn't hate it. And go read it. I don't know, that was crazy. And then the last 2 books I read Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. I started this on audio. I got it on Libby, and I did probably the first 30% on audio, and I struggled really hard with the male POV. And this is a testament to Lisa Jewell's writing and the narrator. So it's positive for them, negative for me. But I hated the male POV because I just like, he sucked. He was the worst. And you're just listening to it and you're just like, man, this man sucks. And you're like, he's such a slime ball. He's so sleazy. You just like kind of want to like take him and throw him across the room. So I think it's like really well done that like all those feelings just really came out in me and I wasn't just like, oh, haha, like crazy book. But it was very much like a visceral reaction for me. And then I did have the paperback. So I brought it to the beach with me this weekend and finished reading it. And I will say I was engaged the whole time. I really liked the different points of view and the different timelines and how they all converged. I just really expected more. There wasn't like this big thing that happened at the end that I was like, oh my god, or this thing that happened that made you rethink the entire book. Like, none of this is true. When I finished it, I was like, wait, hold on. And I just kind of had to sit there for a while. Whereas Don't Let Him In, I was just like, okay, that was fine. So like I said, I did have the paperback. It got a little water damaged at the beach, and so I just left it at the Airbnb for the next guest if they want it, because it's just not one I'm gonna revisit. So I ended very neutral on it. I think if you like thrillers, like if you want like something fast paced that's gonna blow you away, that you didn't see a twist coming, this is not for you. But if you like kind of like the builds your anxiety a little, you're like, how are they gonna come out of this? What are they going to do? More like maybe if you like listening to like true crime podcasts, or if you ever listen to the podcast Something Was Wrong, then I think you would like this book. So do with that what you will. And then the last book I read on my Kindle, and that was Dating After the End of the World by Jeneva Rose. I was really, really excited about this book. I really liked the concept of it. It really disappointed me, unfortunately. I was compelled by the take on zombies and the way like the world ended and the very like survivalist plot that was happening. What really took me out of the story was when the main character, for a 29-year-old woman, felt very immature to me. And I know she was going through a lot, so I was trying to give her a lot of grace, but there's times I'm like, you're just being so petulant. Like, you're an adult. I was 29 2 years ago. What are you doing? Like, that's not what we would do. But I was like willing to kind of overlook that, because I was like, it is the end of the world. You have to go home. You haven't been there in a while. There's like some childhood trauma. But the romance on top of it just really took me out of it. I wanted more. It was like enemies to lovers, but it was like enemies to lust, to in love. I don't know. There was no like slow build. There was no like burn to me. It was just like suddenly they were having sex and saying I love you, and I'm just like, wait, what's happening? So I just like really frustrated by the romance, and I think my frustration about that bled into my feelings about the rest of the book. I have seen a lot of people really like it, so this could be just a me issue. So if you have been curious about it, don't let this deter you. You might still really, really enjoy it, but like I said, just not for me. But that was it. All 15 books I read in May. I had some absolute standouts, some bangers. I think overall it's a really good month, if I'm being honest. So thank you for being here. As always, please like and subscribe. Follow my Instagram, aries.bookworld, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.